Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, your channel on YouTube for all things PSG in English. Today, let's talk about our injury crisis. I saw a very good video earlier today from French channel called TMF for Talk My Football. And the guy does like daily football news video, really, really high quality. So if any of you are actually French speakers, like go check him out if you don't know him. But anyway, he did a really good video trying to untangle all of the different narratives we're getting around our injury crisis. And it really like brought to light a few things for me, confirmed a few things that I was thinking about. And I think I wanted to do the same kind of stuff of trying to go deep and look at what's real and what's not, because we hear a lot of things about like how horrible and terrible and dreadful it is. And in some cases, it's completely right. In some cases, not entirely so. So it's worth, checking in and going a little bit deeper. So the first thing to talk about is PSG really that bad? And so what I did and what you see on the side of the screen here is that I went to Transfermarkt and I looked at how many domestic league games players actually missed because of injury so far this season. So like the numbers you see means PSG, we had like 30 games in total that were missed by players because of injury. So like, one player, one game equals one, and so on and so forth. And so at the end, like what you see is that if you compare to other European clubs, we're actually not that bad. PSG, we've had players miss 30 games so far in the domestic league. I didn't include European competition. I just wanted to do some like quick analysis. I expect European competition is going to be more or less the same anyway. But so PSG at 30, if you compare, for example, like Barcelona is actually like a fair deal worse. Real is worse. Chelsea is worse. Man City is worse. Liverpool is actually doing very, very well so far. And then Arsenal and Bayern are a little bit worse off. Though there's a couple of caveats to that number. The first one being that when it comes to Arsenal and Bayern, they actually have well-known and well-identified very long-term injuries. So, for example, if you're thinking of Bayern, Musiala missed the first like 10, 11 games that they had so far in the season, and so that counts for 10 straight away. Arsenal, like Havertz and Gabriel Jesus, they haven't played yet this season because they're injured, but they've known that for a while. They've prepared based on that. They recruited based on that, and so it's less of an issue. And then the second caveat as well is that we also don't all have the same squad size. And so Chelsea, for example, with 43, it's probably like less painful in the grand scheme of things because they've got so many players in their squad. So I try to like limit it to like really first squad players. I didn't take into account, like the youth players that we can use and so on and so forth. But still, like, yeah, Chelsea does have a very wide squad. It's a well-known fact. And so, like, if they have more injuries, they also have more room to deal with it. But so it's really interesting because I think, as PSG fan, we know, because like when we go into Champions League games, and I know like when we went against Barca, that was part of the narrative of like, oh, we've got so many injuries in PSG, and Barca fans were saying, yeah, but it's the same for us, and so like it is what it is, which was entirely true. In Bayern, like obviously we talked about Musiala, who has been long-term injured and so on. So every club has their challenges. Real Madrid, if you think about it, like they've had so many defenders who've been injured. Now Ndjantou has been out. Chouameni is missing the next French international call-up because he's injured. So there's been stuff going on. And so it's funny as well because it's not even, you don't see a clear line between the clubs who played the Club World Cup or not. So obviously, like PSG and Chelsea, like Chelsea is among the worst impacted, but so is Man City. And ultimately, Man City got kicked out of the Club World Cup pretty early on. PSG went all the way, but at 30, in the end, it's not that bad. Versus, Barcelona wasn't in there, but it's actually worse than Real, who went to semifinals. So that kind of like blanket statement of like, oh, clubs are paying for competing in the Club World Cup. I mean, there's obviously truth to it, and like we see it in fitness level and we see it in different places. But in terms of hardcore data of volumes of injuries, it's a little bit more nuanced than this. And so, you know, when we say injury crisis for PSG, let's be measured a little bit and recognize that actually, like, in terms of really like games missed, it's actually not that bad. So then next question, are our players stretched? Because it's also a big thing. The fitness levels of our player, I think in general, has been in lots of cases less than satisfactory. And so the question mark is that, are we asking too much of them? And so I really I try to go through all of them. Same thing, it's transfer mark data. And so far we've played 1,440 minutes of football this season. Chevalier has played it all, and so by far he's the one who's played the most. But then if you look at other players, I think there's actually only 5 who've played more than 2/3 of the minutes that we've had to play. And so I think it's Hakimi, Warren Zaïre-Emery, Vitinha, Chevalier and Barcola, I think are the 5 who play more than 2/3. Zabarni is pretty close, but I think the cutoff, if I remember correctly, it's like 980 minutes. So Zabarni is right on the line, and so is Pacho, but not quite there. Even Nuno Mendes isn't quite there. So in the end, obviously, some of it is by design, some of it is not. You know, players like Dembele and Doué being around 400 minutes. Of course, if they hadn't been injured, they would have played more. And so it's not entirely by design. And in some cases, you see a player like Barcola, you see a player like Vitinha. Yeah, I mean, Barcola in particular, he said that he's tired and that he's played too much and that it's starting to be difficult for him. And you can definitely see it on the pitch. So it's not a completely black or white situation, because at the same time, a player like Warren Zaïre-Emery actually played more this season than even Barcola. But for him, he's not tired. He's actually like on an upward trajectory, and the playing time is actually doing him a lot of good in terms of getting back to his top level. So it's you cannot make a generality. Hakimi, I was looking at Hakimi in particular because of his injury. He's played a bit more than 1,000 minutes so far. And ultimately, like, he gets injured. He doesn't get injured because he's tired or whatever it might be. He gets injured because of a horrible tackle from Luis Diaz. And if that doesn't happen, chances are Hakimi isn't injured. I mean, you never know, but like, it's the cause of injury isn't that he's played too many games and he's just like tired and it's a muscular issue. And so like, I was actually looking a little bit deeper, and I was looking through last season. So last season, Hakimi, for the whole season, played 79.37% of minutes of football. He played 4,667 minutes out of 5,880 minutes. And so far this season, even if I exclude the last 45 minutes against Bayern Munich, he's played 75.91% of minutes. So he's actually playing a little bit less than last season. Not a huge amount, I'll grant you. But you can't really, like, I'm having a very hard time making the case that we're pushing our players a lot harder than we should. I think in some cases it might be true, and like there's 2 examples which I can point to, which are Vitinha and Barcola. Vitinha, last season he played 76.89%, so 77% of minutes. This season so far is at 79.65, so like 80%. So it does, Vitinha, in proportion, it does play a little bit more this season. Barcola, same thing. Last season, he played about 67% of minutes. This season so far, he's just above 70%. So he does also play a little higher proportion. But apart from those 2, I don't see any examples within the first squad of players who are actually being stretched more than they were last year. And so I think that's actually really interesting because, you know, obviously, like, the data doesn't say everything. but it makes it very, very hard to say that PSG is actually being reckless with their players. So yeah, like you can look at the data in a few different ways, but are our players stretched? If you look at the number of minutes that they're playing, it's actually it's actually a bit hard to make that case. So it is what it is. Then the next question that we hear a lot: why didn't we recruit? Because we knew that we didn't have a summer break, we knew that we didn't have prep, and so in the end, why didn't we get ready to have injuries and recruit more players and so on? And so here too, actually, let's go back to the list with the playing times. If we recruit a player, we need to give him playing times, and I think that's the reality. And I'll grant you that there's players who you could decrease their time. So, for example, Barcola, who's played 1,000 minutes, if he was at 800, I think everyone would be happy for it. If you look at a player like Vitinha, who's played 1,100 minutes, if he was at 900, everyone would be happy. If you look at Hakimi, same thing. Maybe you could get a few minutes back here and there, but you can't bring in a player, and even more if it's a top level player, without carving some time out for them. And I think that's where we need to be very, very upfront about it. Because I actually looked at the players that we were looking at last season for the Mercato. A player like Rodrigo, for example, in Real Madrid, so far this season, he's played 348 minutes, and he is very unhappy about this. So if you bring a player like Rodrigo within your squad, he needs to have at least 800 minutes at this point to be more or less happy. Of course, it's a bit more complex. They want to play Champions League versus not Champions League, but I am doing a bulk kind of view. So 800 minutes, if you bring in a player like Rodrigo, where do you get them? Yes, you get 200 minutes back from Barcola, but then after that, you can get some time back from Ramos, who hasn't played that much, but at the same time, Ramos is under contract, so you need to play him at some point. Yes, sure, you can get the time from Mbaye. Mbaye has played 550 minutes, so that's a lot. So you can carve things in and out, but the reality is that you already have players under contract. So if you recruit a Rodrigo, the consequence of it is that Mbaye doesn't get any playing time, and so we keep having our TTs leave the club and not getting a chance. You can argue all you want about his level, but right now, after the playing time that he's had, he's valued at 30 million euros, which he wasn't at the beginning of the season. And so Mbaye, he was part of the squad that won in Barcelona, so you can't say that in the big game he really hurt us. And two, now he's worth a lot more than he was at the beginning of the season, meaning instead of flatlining or even decreasing the value of our players, by giving them more playing times, we're actually increasing that value. And so at the end of the season, if we don't see a future for Mbaye long term, we can sell him for a lot more money than we would have otherwise. And same thing for a player like Ramos. I know, he's got his limits, and he's got God knows he annoys me at time, and I don't think he's got a long-term future with the team. But the reality is that he didn't want to leave last summer, so it's not like we could have sold him anyway. And now that he's here, what do? You bring a player over him and put him on the bench or not playing with 0 minutes and watch him create problem in the dressing room, have a bad attitude, whatever it might be. We know that it's not the right way to proceed, and in the end, it's not the Luis Enrique way to proceed. So we can argue all we want. It's not the Luis Enrique way to proceed. Is the reality of it. And the other side of this is that we can talk about a Ramos who's not performing enough, and take playing times. We want to take playing times away from him, but at the same time, we've got Lee, who at the beginning of the season and over the summer, no one was believing in. Everyone wanted to sell him. But so far, he's got more than 600 minutes, and actually he was our best player against Bayern Munich. So there's also a world in which giving time to the player is actually giving them opportunities to shine, and they show that. So it's a tough one. It's not really like as black and white as like, oh, we should have seen this coming, we should have recruited, because like this is not like Football Manager or FIFA as much as we would want to. Same thing with like the fullbacks, because that's another point of question. And just before I move on, for like the attackers, Akliouche is at 1,100 minutes played. Mastantuono in Real Madrid, nearly 700 minutes played. So, you know, like the 700, 800 minutes that I was looking at, that's kind of the reality of this kind of player. Fullback, Joel Hato, who went from Ajax to Chelsea this summer, and who a lot of people were asking to recruit as a backup to Nuno Mendes, 527 minutes played. So if you look at what Nuno Mendes has played, yes, Nuno Mendes plus Joel Hato, that's basically all of the minutes that we've had to play this season. So we could have brought him in. The thing is then, either Beraldo or Hernandez wouldn't have played any time this season. And so, you know, neither of them really wanted to leave last summer. So either you accept that and you've got a player in your dressing room who's not playing any, who doesn't have any opportunities, and who's mad and annoyed and creating a bad beat, or you don't recruit. And that's just the reality of it. Like, in the end, I think, you know, a player like Beraldo wouldn't be surprised if he leaves during this winter, and so it might open up an opportunity, but it wasn't an opportunity last summer. And those players, Beraldo, for all the noise in the media, he didn't really do much to find a way out. So he didn't really want to leave. Ramos, same thing, like didn't want to leave. So we also have to respect the fact that we've got players under contract, and that's it. So that's kind of like the recruitment element of it. I think, like, just to like add one more thing on this topic, why didn't we recruit? There's also a strategic direction element to it, which is that we know that Ligue 1 is not the strongest league in the world. We know that we can get away with playing a weaker squad in Ligue 1, and so we don't need to have world-class substitute like you would if you're playing in the Premier League, for example. And so for us, it's more interesting to be able to offer playing time to our youngster in Ligue 1. It doesn't really cost us that much in terms of performance, and you see it, we're still on top of the league. But like I said, an Mbaye jumped from like being completely unknown in world football to being worth 30 million. And Ndjantou as well. You know, he played 200 plus minutes at this point, and he's making an impact. And he's a youngster that, you know, is playing well, and he's getting his minutes. So Mayulu, same thing. So it's a strategic direction. You can agree with it or disagree with it, but this is the direction of the club, and so that's the rationale for it. Cool. And so in the end, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Another thing that gets reproached of PSG a lot, and I hear it in the media, is we're pushing our players too much to come back when they're injured, to play too much, and so on. And this one, I think, is like, honestly, like, I think for 2% of truth, there's 98% of lie in this one. Because do we push our players to come back? No, we don't. Look at Dembele. Like, literally, he was ready to play against Strasbourg, and we pushed it back a week or two because, like, Luis Enrique wasn't sure of his fitness. Look, during the Club World Cup, they waited like 2 more weeks with him before they made him play, and they get him back like very, very progressively. Look at a player like Doué, for example. Doué came back. Sadly, he got injured again, but like the first game and a half that he had in between injuries, he was at a really high level straight away. So you see, they took the time not only to fix him, but to give him like a physical preparation, get him back to a top level, so that when he plays, he's already at the level. So I don't think, I don't think it's fair to say we're stretching them. And like time and time again, we see it, that Luis Enrique makes his starting 11 decisions based on the fitness levels of the player. Joao Neves in Barcelona during the pre-game warm-up says he's not feeling it, he's not playing. Warren Zaïre-Emery plays that game when Joao Neves was supposed to play. yeah, there's other examples like this as well. Like there's been more than a few cases of like players not feeling it. Okay, you're sitting out and we'll play someone else. No drama. And it's cost us. We've dropped points in some games because our squad wasn't there. So like Strasbourg, for example, if you remember the Strasbourg game, we draw 3-3 and like we've got Nuno Mendes and Hakimi are on the bench. And even like I think we equalized late in the game. Even when we're in a position to lose this game, Luis Enrique doesn't put Hakimi or Nuno Mendes on the pitch. Nuno Mendes gets on the pitch at the 90th minute, so really in the dying moments of the game. So it's like he's literally saying, I will take a loss, even if I lose, I'm not gonna give playing time to my fullbacks right now because they need to rest and they're not playing this game. So we've time and time again showed that we're perfectly prepared to take bad consequences and we're prioritizing the health of the players. Another thing, like I've heard it actually like today or yesterday, that Dembele in the Bayern Munich game, he was actually like he got injured because we pushed him to play too early. Two things about that. Dembele against Bayern Munich, he gets injured in a different place than in previous injury. Like literally, like one is in the thigh, the other one is in the ankle. So like, literally two different places. One of the French like football media was trying to like say, oh yes, but it's because he's compensating for his previous injury and so on. It's like impossible to prove, impossible to disprove as well. So I'm not even gonna get into that. But yeah, everyone has their own opinion. But the reality of it is that, which I think like the squad does try to take every precaution with the players. I don't think it's 100% perfect. And Luis Enrique actually like did a mea culpa after the Bayern game. What he said was that in essence, like he's also like sometimes he should trust the opinions of players a little bit less. And like the rumors behind the scene is that Dembele had picked up a knock the day before the game, but he wasn't showing up in any sort of like medical test or anything. The player said he was feeling okay, and so they played him, and that's like where he actually like picked up another knock in the game against Bayern, and where he got out. And so Luis Enrique was like, yeah, actually, like I shouldn't have trusted him to play. I should have trusted myself and not played him. Yeah, I mean, you're never going to get it 100%, so it is what it is. And I think with a player like Dembele as well, like the lack of summer prep, it's showing, because even when he comes back from injury, you can see that he's nowhere close to his top level. So you see a player like Doué come back from injury and impact straight away. You see a player like Dembele, he needs time to get back to his top level. He needs to like be wrapped in bubble wrap and protected as he gets back to his peak fitness and so on. And I think realistically, it's very, very hard to do. And like we didn't get it completely right on this one. But at the same time, you see a player like Nuno Mendes, who people like is a fragile player as well. He's had his injury trouble in the past, and yet like he's been playing at an insanely high level this season without summer prep. He's progressively ramped up over the first like month or two of the season, and in the end, he gets injured. Is it because he's tired? Like, hard to say, hard to know for sure. I'm not a doctor. I don't see all of the data. But, he didn't play a crazy high percentage of minutes. He looked like his summer was actually, his physical condition was actually good. So there's an element of bad luck as well. Hakimi, he gets injured from a Luis Diaz tackle. Like, no Luis Diaz, no injury. What can you do about that, So there's stuff we get wrong for sure. I don't have all the data, so I can't like always pinpoint it. But yeah, there's also a lot we do right. So anyway, this is kind of like what I wanted to talk about on this one, the truth about the injury, because we say everything PSG does is wrong and it's terrible and we should, recruit 20 players and fire like our half of our staff. I think the reality is a lot more layered than this. I hope this video was, informative in a way, or at least like, giving you some new food for thought. Let me know in the comment what you think about all of this. and you know, how much do you think we do right versus how much do we do wrong? Please drop a like on the video if you've made it this far. It's been a long one, and like as you can see, I really researched this one as well. And yeah, like as always, if you haven't yet, like please subscribe to the channel. We're this far from 500 subs, which is amazing. So let's get it done, guys. I'm counting on you. Share the video with your PSG friends and networks and so on. And as always, injured or not, ici c'est Paris!